Yoon Suk-yeol government's first regular cabinet meeting is held, topping the agenda a vision to develop provinces outside of Seoul. The BOK delivered back-to-back rate hikes for the first time in 15 years. Moody's downgraded South Korea's growth forecast to 2.5%. Russia reportedly stepped up its offensive and is moving to take over more Ukrainian cities. The country's top diplomat accuses Moscow of trying to blackmail the international community to lift sanctions.
Hello and welcome. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with our top story. Moody's downgraded South Korea's growth forecast to 2.5%, 0.2% less than its March figures of 2.7%. The agency's report released on Thursday comes after Seoul's trade balance worsened in April. However, Moody's has raised next year's projection to 2.8%, 0.2% higher than the March forecast. The nation's central bank raised benchmark interest rate to 1.75%, the second hike in a row as the BOK tries to fight inflation forecast to come at the highest level in 15 years. Here's Ji-young with a breakdown of the digits.
South Korea's central bank has raised its key interest rate 2 times in a row for the first time in 15 years. The Bank of Korea hiked the base rate to 1.75%, up a quarter percentage point amid soaring consumer prices. The decision was made during the bank's policy meeting on Thursday in an attempt to rein in the country's inflation, which is nearing 5%.
The South Korean economy is recovering despite the rise in uncertainty overseas. Because the inflationary pressure is forecast to be much higher than expected, and there are risks of financial imbalances, we have decided to raise the base rate by 0.25 percentage points.
The rate hike comes just 1 month after the central bank raised the key interest rate by 25 basis points. This also marks the 5th increase since the BOK slashed its rate to a record low of 0.5% in May 2020 due to virus woes. The government has been pursuing a tighter monetary policy since August last year amid growing global inflationary pressure. Now the benchmark rate has been set at even higher than the 1.25% from just before the outbreak of COVID-19. Thursday's rate decision meeting was the first one presided over by new BOK Governor Lee Chang-yong, who had been signaling rate hikes. He has been indicating that inflation is the BOK's policy priority.
As the Bank of Korea sees prolonged high inflation, our monetary policy will be based on taming these high consumer prices.
The bank is seeing faster inflation this year with inflation rate forecasts of 4.5%. It's the highest in almost 14 years and up from the previous 3.1% forecast made in February. This comes as South Korea's consumer prices are seeing the biggest on-year increase since October 2008 during the global financial crisis. The country's consumer price index last month surged by 4.8% from the year before, well above the government's inflation target of 2%. The Bank of Korea also said the economy is likely to sustain sound recovery this year, with growth projected at 2.7%. But that figure has seen 0.3 percentage points slash from the projection made in February. The Bank of Korea said the country's economic growth this year will be led by increased private spending with the lifting of social distancing measures. But it added that due to the sluggish global economy, export growth is likely to slow. Ji-young, Arirang News.
Top South Korean conglomerates are announcing new investment plans. SK and LG seem set to spare no expenses in supporting future growth engines like batteries and biotechnology. Yoon provides a glimpse of what to expect.
Local conglomerates are stepping up their game in developing future industries. 2 of South Korea's biggest conglomerates announced Thursday that they will invest hundreds of billions of dollars into batteries, biotechnology, and R&D over the next 5 years. SK Group, the country's second biggest conglomerate spy asset, plans to invest around $195 billion. More than half is set aside for chip making and biopharmaceuticals. SK also says it's going to invest over 70% into South Korea to revitalize the sluggish economy. LG Group also announced plans to invest about $84 billion over the next 5 years. Nearly half will go into future growth engines, including batteries, displays, and AI. In regards to workers, both SK and LG pledged to create 50,000 new jobs each through 2026. Earlier this week, Samsung Electronics, Hyundai Motor, Lotte Group, and Hanwha Group all announced big investment plans to grow future industries. Their plans reflect President Yoon Suk-yeol's pledge to create a business-friendly environment and support industries making semiconductors, batteries, and AI. The president believes that these are the areas that South Korea is already a leader in, but has been facing challenges due to unnecessary regulations and global competition. 이지윤, Arirang News.
The Yoon Suk-yeol government's first regular cabinet meeting was held. The key discussion topics included easing tax burdens, creating a national integration committee, and regional development. Yoon Jung-min brings the highlights from that session.
Working for a balanced regional development under the leadership of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. That's President Yoon Suk-yeol as he presided over his first regular cabinet meeting at the Sejong government complex in Sejong, an administrative city roughly 140 kilometers south of Seoul.
어느 지역에 살든 상관없이 우리 국민 모두는 공정한 기회를 누려야 합니다. 이것은 새 정부가 지향하는 공정의 가치이기도 합니다. 또 이 지방시대는 인구 절벽의 해법이기도 한 만큼 중장기 전략이 매우 중요하고
As he stressed teamwork in working for the people and the nation, the president also discussed income tax rules aimed at temporarily easing tax burdens and guidelines for creating a committee on national integration. Yoon, whose key national tasks include balancing out development across all regions in the country, is focused on elevating the status of Sejong City by transferring more government complexes and giving more weight to the administrative city.
앞으로도 자주 이곳 세종에서 국무위원 여러분들과 수시로 얼굴을 맞대고 일하겠습니다.
After the cabinet meeting, Yoon held a meet and greet with public officials in their 20s and 30s and stopped by the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency. At KDCA, he discussed various science-based disease prevention measures as the nation braces for the possibility of another COVID surge this fall and winter season. South Korea's big data project in the biosector also took up the president's agenda in Sejong as he took a tour of the biobank where biological data are stored and managed. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The National Assembly's Judiciary Committee approved a bill to set up a secondary presidential office in Sejong City. The plan that involves boosting regional growth could be a key factor in the local elections. Lee Kyung-eun explains further.
In the administrative capital of Sejong, the incumbent mayor Lee Chun-hee of the Democratic Party is aiming for a third term. Public officials in their 30s, 40s, and 50s have traditionally leaned liberal, so the central city was once considered a safe seat for the main opposition DP. But in this election, Sejong has become a toss-up, with Choi Min-ho of the Conservative People Power Party catching up in the polls. The rising expectations for the region's development once Sejong fully becomes South Korea's administrative capital, which is being pushed by both the main parties, laying the legal foundations for setting up a secondary presidential office in the city. This was also an election pledge made both by President Yoon Suk-yeol and the DP's Lee Jae-myung as part of achieving balanced national development. And on Thursday, Parliament's Judiciary Committee approved a bill to do it just 6 days before the elections. This was the final hurdle for the bill to be put up for a vote. And given the bipartisan consensus, the bill will likely be passed swiftly at a plenary session, which could be held as soon as Friday. Its approval also comes on the same day President Yoon held his first cabinet meeting in the city. The PPP's Choi Min-ho has rallied his supporters, pointing to the synergy he could create as mayor with the Yoon administration. The DP's Lee Chun-hee condemned President Yoon's cabinet meeting as lacking sincerity. With the 2 days of early voting on Friday and Saturday, the two parties are going all out to win Sejong, which could also affect the surrounding Chungcheong region. There are a total of 4 out of 17 posts are up for grabs. Yoon, Arirang News.
The nation's daily COVID-19 tally dipped below the 20,000 mark again. The fewest for Thursday since late January. 18,816 new infections, more than 18 million in total. There were also 243 severely ill people and 34 deaths. Those in fact are still required to stay at home, a measure that's extended through most of June. But this group will be able to vote in next week's local elections at designated times. A senior American diplomat reaffirmed Washington's commitment to engage with North Korea despite recent provocations. Even if the regime has remained unresponsive to offer for support in dealing with the outbreak, the U.S. will continue to support efforts to provide humanitarian aid. Kim Yo-sun has the full story.
Washington will continue to support providing COVID-19 help for North Korea despite the regime's latest missile provocations. Mark Lambert, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Japan and South Korea, said in a virtual press briefing Wednesday that the U.S. stance remains unchanged, even in light of recent provocations by the North. He explained that the U.S. has always viewed humanitarian assistance as a separate issue from achieving complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. The senior diplomat also underscored that the U.S. remains open to dialogue with Pyongyang. During a separate briefing, State Department Press Secretary Ned Price called on the international community to condemn the North's latest missile launches. Strongly renouncing the regime for its latest provocations, he also called on countries to implement UN Security Council sanctions on the regime. The remarks come on the heels of the North's firing of 3 ballistic missiles early Wednesday, which marked its 17th show of force this year. North Korea's escalatory action was met with criticism by the UN. Speaking with journalists on Wednesday, a UN spokesman said the regime's provocation only continues to escalate regional and global tensions. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
On Thursday, the UNSC will vote on Washington's push to increase sanctions on North Korea. This meeting comes in response to the regime's ICBM launch in March. According to a U.S. official, the draft resolution would restrict Pyongyang from advancing its ballistic missile programs, streamline sanctions implementation, and further facilitate humanitarian aid. The draft also proposes cutting crude oil exports to the reclusive state by 1 million barrels to 3 million annually, and reducing refined petroleum exports by 125,000 barrels to 375,000. The resolution would also ban exports of tobacco. China and Russia, which hold the right to veto, voiced opposition. North Korean state media have still not covered Wednesday's missile test. Typically, the regime reports launches the following day, but it has not covered any of the 4 missiles fired this month. According to Seoul's Unification Ministry, this is likely a political calculation linked to a number of possible factors, including the situation on the peninsula. Even without publicizing the launches, the communist state provoked a show of force from Seoul and Washington, which launched missiles in response. Just days earlier, President Biden said he's prepared to deploy America's strategic assets, including nuclear weapons. Russia has reportedly stepped up its offensive and is moving to take over more Ukrainian cities. Ukraine's foreign minister believes Moscow is trying to blackmail the international community to gain sanctions relief. Yi Xiu has the latest.
Battling is intensifying in the city of Severodonetsk in the eastern Luhansk region of Ukraine. The Ukrainian presidential administration on Wednesday reported constant mortar shelling in the area. Serhiy Haidai, the head of the region's military administration, said the shelling had increased exponentially. The Russian offensive has also intensified in the city of Liman in the Donetsk region. That's according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on Wednesday. If Russian forces take control of Liman, an important rail hub, it would allow them to encircle nearby regions more easily. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said on Wednesday that Russia was trying to blackmail the international community by saying it will unblock Black Sea ports in return for lesser sanctions.
Now, today we saw the statement by the Russian official from the Russian, I think, deputy foreign minister, who said, for example, Russia will unblock Ukrainian ports to allow exports of Ukrainian agricultural products to the global market if sanctions are imposed against Russia are lifted. So this is a clear blackmail. You could not find a better example of a blackmail in international relations.
Kuleba added that if Russia does not lift its blocking of Ukrainian crop exports, it could cause a multi-year food crisis. He also encouraged more sanctions to be made on Russia. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced at a state council meeting on Wednesday that the country's state pension and minimum wage will rise substantially from June 1st.
We had a long discussion with our government about it. There were arguments inside the government too, but decisions have been made. And today, I want to announce it. I suggest to increase pensions by 10% from June 1st.
Pensions were already raised by 8.6% at the beginning of the year, but Putin says that inflation in Russia has risen sharply in 2022 to 17.5%. However, he denied that the rise is related to the war in Ukraine. 이시후, Arirang News.
South Korea has decided to send a third round of non-lethal aid to Ukraine worth around 1.5 billion Korean won or 1.2 million US dollars. According to the Defense Ministry, shipments of gas masks and mask canisters should arrive in that country next month. The supplies are to help them be prepared against possible chemical or nuclear attacks. President Volodymyr Zelensky has asked Seoul for military support during his address to the National Assembly. The first shipments included bulletproof helmets, tents, meals, and first aid kits. The BRICS community, made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, launched the Joint Committee on Space Cooperation. This comes just a day after the Quad started its own space cooperation. China National Space Administration announced Thursday that the members held their first virtual meeting the previous day to discuss the remote sensing satellite constellation project. Designed to better serve economic and social development in member nations, the system can observe and photograph any part of the world within a short period of time. New space is the term that describes private companies taking the lead in the space industry. One South Korean company took a bold step forward in that sense by being the first local private firm to launch a satellite. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
This could be just another rocket launch for many, but for South Korea, it means a great deal. Among the 59 spacecraft inside the SpaceX Falcon 9 on Wednesday is South Korea's first ever civilian-operated satellite, the Sejong 1. HongKong In Space, in cooperation with U.S. company Spire Global, developed the satellite. While South Korean companies have developed and exported compact satellites such as Sejong 1 in the past, HongKong is the first firm to be operating one. Until now, all satellite operations have been under control of the government. HongKong confirmed that about 75 minutes after launch, it was able to establish a connection. And in terms of size, Sejong 1 is 20 centimeters wide, 10 in length, and 30 in height. It weighs 10.8 kilograms and orbits the Earth 12 to 14 times a day, completing an orbit every 90 minutes at 500 kilometers above Earth. The satellite uses a 5-meter resolution observation camera. The images and clips can be sold to customers that need analyses on large areas of land, such as countries that depend on farming and other agricultural business.
We won't stop here. Sejong 2 will come later in 2022. We plan on having up to 5 satellites by 2023 to have a satellite constellation. It will enhance timing and resolution. We'll have daily observations of the Korean Peninsula.
The industry is only expected to get bigger, with Allied Market Research saying by 2030, the global small satellite market is expected to surpass $13 billion US. Sejong 1 is just a start for South Korean companies. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In 2021, South Korea earned $11.7 billion US dollars from content and merchandise exports. Experts believe the huge on-year boost comes largely thanks to the success of BTS and Squid Game. A business forum focused on what would be the next big thing. Kim Hyun-sung shares with us what was discussed.
Korean content's booming popularity is bringing in the big bucks. According to Korea Foundation for International Cultural Exchange on Thursday, South Korea earned almost $11.7 billion US dollars from exports of Korean goods or cultural content in 2021. That's $170 million US dollars more than the year before. Experts say that both BTS and the hit Netflix original series Squid Game were contributing factors. Exports for consumer goods rose almost 20% in 2021. These include food, cosmetics, accessories, and other merchandise. And more foreign companies are looking to venture into the lucrative world of Korean culture. KOTRA, or Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency, on Thursday launched a platform to help them to do so. KOTRA, with its British Chamber of Commerce in Korea, held a business forum in Myeongdong, central Seoul, to discuss business opportunities in Korean content. Around 50 business people, foreign officials, and attorneys that help with trans-border transactions were invited.
We wanted to share our insights on what to look out for when doing business with the Korean entertainment industry. And we wanted to create more opportunities for the Korean entertainment industry to expand more overseas.
Finnish entertainment industry is not too famous globally and also not famous in Korea. So today I am actually seeking for introducing a movie about Korean ice hockey dreams produced by a Finnish producer.
Those in attendance included Julian Knight, a British member of parliament, who delivered the keynote address, during which he touched on the huge success of Squid Game.
And I will never think of a red light or a green light any different ever again, thanks to Squid Game.
On top of the widely known Korean dramas and K-pop artists, the forum also introduced some new K-content that's coming up on the horizon.
So in order to understand what sort of business opportunities out there, it is important, we believe it is important to understand and pay a close attention to two things. One, webtoon, and two, technology.
It might have started with BTS and Squid Game, but according to Thursday's forum, K-culture's growing sphere is expanding and is now reaching into web entertainment, the metaverse, and AI technology. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
If you're planning to take part in some cultural events to enjoy this weekend, how about an exhibition that presents a variety of craft works that were on display in Milan, as well as some for the visually impaired? Kim Bo-kyung provides a sneak peek.
Alchemy using glass, wood, and stainless steel. Korea Craft Week welcomes those interested in making something magical with their hands. The 10-day event has been held annually since 2018. This year, over 600 craft studios and galleries are holding around 1,400 events, letting craft lovers enjoy craft to its fullest. The festival's centerpiece is at Culture Station Seoul 284 in Seoul's Junggu district. The venue showcases the exquisite beauty of Korean craftsmanship, which has been featured at the Milan Design Week, the world's largest design and craftwork fair.
이게 지금 저희가 보고 있는 게 밀라노 한국공예전에서 선보여줬던 작품들인 거잖아요. 혹시 특징이 있었다면 어떤 특징이 있었다고 할 수 있을까요?
네, 그 한국 전통공예의 아름다움을 현대적으로 보여주는 그런 작품들을 전시하였는데요. 사실 이런 작품 같은 경우에도 보면은 그 자기의 아름다움을 그 가구 전체에 덮어서 현대적인 가구로 활용한 그런 작품이에요. 그래서 사실
It also features wooden craftwork by the artist who designed all the furniture of the wealthy Park family house in the film Parasite. But seeing isn't everything in this festival.
Unlike other types of art that are usually just for people to look at, craft is for people to use, to touch and feel. This exhibition room highlights that aspect of craft work. It presents a graduation book made for students with impaired vision so they can touch, feel, and remember their friends.
Each face is a student or faculty member from Daegu Kwangmyeong School, a special education school for the blind.
Students' faces have been carved using 3D technology, and the button below each student's profile plays their own recorded voice. History can also be seen with your hands.
The visually impaired have fewer chances to learn and enjoy culture and cannot easily go on trips. With an education tool offering small artifacts from Gyeongbokgung Palace, they can learn history.
Decorative and beautiful, but functional and useful even for those with visual disabilities. The craft fair, letting visitors actually touch objects, runs until 29th. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Temperatures will be rising from this point on. Maximum readings will near 25 degrees Celsius in Seoul, which is close to what we normally see at this time of the year. But this brief respite from the heat will only last until tomorrow. Summer-like conditions of near 30 degrees will make a return this weekend. Another rain system is approaching from the north of the peninsula. Until tomorrow morning, light showers will be falling across parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces. The amount of rainfall won't be too much, with about 5 millimeters expected. Also, strong winds are in the forecast for Gangwon-do province. Mountainous regions in particular will see winds gusting up to 25 meters per second. Morning lows will range from 12 to 18 degrees nationwide. Seoul will start up at 16 degrees. As for the daily highs, Chuncheon will get up to 24 degrees, Gyeongju 31, Daejeon and Gwangju will reach 27 degrees. On Sunday, southern parts of the country will see light rainfall, and showers are forecast to spread nationwide by next Monday. It's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.
전통과 새로움이 만나 더 큰 가치를 만들어갑니다. 그 가치들은